My brothers, if anyone among you wanders from the truth, and someone brings him back, let him know that whoever brings back a sinner from his wandering will save his soul from death and will cover a multitude of sins. Self-destruction. The chain of mistakes wearing down hope into hurt. The creeping apathy that says life isn't worth living, and actions with consequences only matter to the blessed. The habit of stealing from the future to brighten the present, until the future becomes the present, and more joy must be stolen, and more debt accrued, until the day when the debts can be pushed back no longer. For the stranger walking past the homeless man, he's just a lost cause. But what if that homeless man is your brother? If that machine, groaning and creaking every morning to get out of bed, is someone you love? What do you do for the self-destructing? My name is Connor, and I am making a game about saving a brother, and what that takes. Jake is a boy who talks a lot and never asks for permission. A long time ago, he loved to play with his brother in their own little world. Not a world of imagination, a real, magical world. A world in a book, where the owner can make anything he wants. As a child, Jake's brother banished him. The game begins years later, as Jake returns to this world to set things right. Self-destructing doesn't happen overnight. Resentment builds up as hope breaks down. On both sides. But Jake is too stubborn to accept blame. He just wants to forget all that and start over. So he'll joke and he'll jump and he'll clap and he'll hug. But he'll avoid hard conversations. And under the foundation, the cracks in their relationship widen. The co-protagonist of this adventure is Esau, the creator of the world. He's retreated into his fantasy land. And why wouldn't he? He's king there. He's drowned himself in the fruits of his imagination, completely alone. In his world, he takes the form of a wolf. You may be wondering, who in my life am I so bitter about that I wrote an entire game about them? Whose argument am I portraying? Who is Esau? Esau is based on me. If my life had gone slightly differently, if my creativity had become my prison, if I had torn up all my relationships, I would have been happily lonely. And then, what would have become of me? Esau's problems reflect some of my own that I've talked about in other videos. My struggle with lust. But the game itself will not be explicit. That's one of the reasons I chose this art style. This game is about the chains of addiction in someone who is given everything. Esau's world has a few living characters in it that Esau made. These characters are parts of Esau. Old parts of him that he may have forgotten about, or parts he intentionally shoved away. His memories, his love, his conscience. Esau has done his best to ignore them, yet still they persist. They can't get through to Esau, but they offer encouragement to Jake, with the hope that he can succeed where they failed. I was tempted to make this a one-player game, where Esau is a villain, but I don't think that's right. When someone is self-destructing, they're not fighting you so much as they're drifting. You walk alongside them, talking with them, playing games, eating food. They show up a little less one day. The next month, you stopped your regular hangout. Then 2 years pass, and you realized how long it's been since you last saw them. When was the last time you talked? It would be too awkward to call them. They wouldn't want to see me anyways. But what if something happened that forced you to barge in? Esau's world is a puzzle game about coordinating together. You plan out what Esau will do ahead of time, and then act in tandem to solve puzzles. The mechanic of the game is affected by the story. Sometimes, Esau will be enthusiastic, and he'll help in the solution. And sometimes, he'll be so depressed, all he can do is walk. You must push through the hard times in the hope that you'll break through to the person and find the blue skies of forgiveness at the end. But what if you don't? I think the reason we don't reach out to our brothers when we see they're self-destructing is shame. Destruction of the self doesn't happen in a night. And we were there. We saw the warning signs. We saw him suffer. We saw him slip into the pit of despair. Day by day, and we did nothing. Are we going to go back to him now and wag our fingers? The second reason we don't reach out is that we can't do anything. Before someone is obviously self-destructing, it's easy to sweep away the warning signs and worry about your own lives. But by the time his danger is obvious, he's in so deep that the habits themselves control his life. When protecting myself becomes violent, the brother must justify his actions by doubling down. He started it. She broke up with me and rubbed it in my face. I hit her sister, so he was going to beat me up. I had to get him first. In using excuses to protect himself, he justifies even more violence. And so he gets worse. When a porn habit gets bad enough that it's noticeable, it's already become a dependence. One step leads to another, until he's 3 miles into the swamp and he looks back. He wonders, what happened? He's not in control of himself anymore. What good would a rational argument about long-term flourishing do? Especially from you. For Christians, we can offer one thing to our brothers. At my church, there's this young guy. He spent a couple years in the Marines, but after getting out, he couldn't find what he wanted to do. Every job he either didn't like or was no good at. Eventually, he ended up on the street, doing drugs and stealing. By complete accident, he got pulled over for speeding one day. As the police asked for his car registration, he opened the glove compartment and a bag of drugs fell out. The car in question had been stolen and he only just got it back. Those weren't his drugs. He didn't even know they were there. But as a repeat offense, that bag of dope landed him in jail. After getting out, he joined a halfway house to help him get sober. The program was connected to a church, and there, he reconnected with God. A few weeks in, he told me, I finally feel human again. From leaving the Marines to that moment was 10 years. What happened? Was it the Socratic method? Was it a stirring speech from his mom that convinced him to change? No. It was a coincidence. It was God's hand. Making a story about feuding brothers has taught me this. People don't get logicked into change. You don't make a perfect argument and your brother rushes into your arms. People are not won over. Something in them has to change. And if you can believe it, there is someone who knows our own hearts better than we do, because he made them. So like an expert surgeon, he will use whatever tools he can to operate on us, even a forgotten bag of dope. On a more personal level, working on this game has taught me to be patient. The game story was meant to be a lot shorter, but my own experiences waiting on lost friends has forced me to keep adding levels. I started working on this game 2.5 years ago now. Through all of that, I've changed a lot. People I know have changed a lot. The passage of time is scary, but it can also be comforting. For someone you know, their turnaround point could be tomorrow. You just have to wait for it to come. Goodness himself is in the pages. Jake, will you wait for your brother? ESAU'S World releases on March 22nd. Play the demo and wishlist it on Steam.